Well, welcome everybody. We're glad to have you on the bridge today. And we are, I have to read this so I get it right. We're in season 4, episode 8, and we're welcoming Colleen Kochannek today. Did I say it right?
You absolutely did.
Yay.
You nailed it. Nailed it. Yeah.
Yay. We're going to have her tell us a little bit about herself in a minute. But Sandy, do you have a quote for us today?
I do. I like this one a lot. Courage doesn't mean you don't get scared. Courage means you don't let fear stop you. We all get fearful at different times in our lives, but the courage is to be going beyond that and working through it no matter what. And I love that.
Good. Okay. Well, Colleen, welcome to the bridge. And, I'm going to say up front, I just love your energy and the way you interact with people. So you're a perfect guest. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I will give you like kind of the abbreviated version because it's a long story, but I'm Colleen. I'm about to be 58 next week. And I was a corporate lady my whole life. I was laid off on April 29th, 2016, actually. I only remember that because it came up in one of those Facebook memories.
Right.
You gotta love Facebook. Gotta love Facebook for those. And I had a job that I really loved, but I was done with the corporate thing. And so at the time, I saw everybody, like all the cool kids were starting online businesses. So I'm like, I'm going to go start an online business. I had no idea really what that meant at all, but I jumped in and kind of that from that period, like for the next 6 or 7 years, my life was very much a shit show. Am I allowed to cuss? A shit show? Am I allowed to curse? Okay.
That is descriptive. You're doing descriptive work.
Okay. So I was laid off from a long time career, started a digital business, became a caregiver to my husband kind of quickly, suddenly. I was a caregiver for a year. He passed away. And then fast forward, I then lost my sister, my only sibling, lost 2 best friends, kind of lost everything, started over. And that's kind of, my goal now is like, I always say like, I'm only 57, I'm only 58, because I also have this realization that we have this whole third act ahead of us. And honestly, my realization from having lost everybody and everything was like, well, it's awful, of course, but I'm like, I can go do anything I want. And I had no idea what I wanted.
Yeah.
None. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know who I am. So it's kind of been this awakening or this journey, just for lack of a better word.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what I can say is our quote fits you perfectly because you are a woman of courage for sure. You jumped off the cliff. You didn't know what was going to happen and you did it, and you are very resilient.
I think we all are. I haven't met a woman yet that isn't. And it's interesting, your quote. I was a guest speaker at a summit a couple weeks ago. They asked me to come talk about imposter syndrome and this whole idea of fear. And the question was, how do you get over imposter syndrome? I said, you don't. You go do it afraid. That's how it works in life. You go do it afraid. Yeah.
It kind of digs the process. Yeah, it kind of digs the resilience hole a little bit deeper, and your roots get to go deeper because, some people do back away from fear and from being courageous. But tell me more about your courage, because I have a feeling you were acting in courage before you lost everything too. Were there times in your corporate life and, life in general that you had to decide and jump?
Yeah, I mean, life in general, I have a whole series, like a whole video series on TikTok I did. I've had a shit show in the last 7 years. I also come from a shit show. I come from like a crazy childhood trauma, abuse, all of that, which you don't really realize at the time. You sweep it under the rug, and it definitely creates, a very specific strength that you don't have. You become a survivor,
Right.
really, right? And you don't really know it.
Right.
So my
Yeah.
whole life, I've always been somebody that has just jumped. Like I always say, I leap before I look. I'm not risk averse at all. I don't know if it's a personality trait or from the craziness of childhood or whatever, but I am very much like, let's see what happens. And it has always served me well. I've always like, what is that saying? Like you fly, like you build the airplane, or you jump out of the airplane and you build it, whatever
Right.
that saying, whatever that saying is. And I've always kind of been that way. Yeah, I've just always had that. I don't know. I guess survivor strength, and then looking back on it, of course, if I could have had it differently, I would have. But it has also given me, incredible resilience today.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
You live and learn.
yeah, I love building the airplane while it's in flight is a good saying for change management. And you did a lot of self change management. And so when I say as a leader, you have courage and you're willing to take risks, talk to me about the people in your life that you've been a role model to, or the way that, because you've got lots of different series, themes throughout that you're doing in your business. And kind of tell me how you have worked through that, or some of the, as a leader, because you are a leader.
Yeah, and that's a scary label sometimes, like when people are counting on you or watching you, or it can give you pause sometimes. And to be honest, it was when I started my online business, I was in a very different place. My husband was still alive. We had our house. Life was just kind of happening. So I was in a much more secure place. And then as things unfold, it just kind of unfolds. And the more I got into my business of helping women start digital businesses, I really started realizing, oh, this isn't about making money. It is about making money. We have to make money. But the
Sure.
deeper like challenges they had were they were afraid of being seen. They were afraid of putting themselves out there. They were afraid they didn't have anything of value to offer. And I was sitting there screaming like, how can you say this? But I noticed it was kind of this thread with women, conditioning, patriarchy, whatever you want to get to, but we're very much afraid to own our expertise. We're very much afraid to brag about it because nice girls don't brag about that. And, if you are an expert, you should be giving it away because that's the nice thing to do. And so I just started seeing like the underbelly of what was really happening. And so I just kind of started speaking to that as well. They're very much intertwined, I think.
Well,
I always
yeah,
say,
I
if you
love
want to self-develop, start a business, because every insecurity you've ever had will come straight.
Right.
Straight from
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Well, so
Well,
what
timing can be everything. Timing can be everything too, don't you think? There's times when you're ready to learn from your own experience, where other times you're just in survival mode and you can't pause to think until after it's done. Like I don't know if you've ever been in a near accident or been in an accident and it goes into slow motion, and then afterwards you can go back and think through it. I think that life is a lot like that. When you're processing, when you're in the middle of it, a lot of times you're not aware of the learning that's going on or the possibilities that can come out of it until you get past it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't, I didn't just come out of my trauma and everything. I had 2 years where I pretty much sat in a dark room, sucking my thumb and getting good therapy and not leaving the house and all the things. So it wasn't like an
Right.
instant, like she was just fine. But it was when I came out of that, like you said, it's kind of looking back, like I needed that. I called it catching my breath. Like I just needed to catch my breath for 2 years. But it was very much about, yeah, like you need to, now I have the retrospect, of course, which, hindsight is always 2020. When you're in it, you don't necessarily see it or know it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think Western culture does well as far as grieving. They don't know how to grieve very
No.
well.
Oh.
It's like, let's get past it and let's go
Yeah.
on. And I
Good
don't think we give ourselves time and ourselves permission to do what we need to do. And I'm glad you took those 2 years
Yeah.
to help you be able to figure out where you were going
Yeah.
next.
Yeah. And we do. I mean, I could have a whole conversation on grieving, like just how we talk about death. Oh, he passed. I'm like, he died. He died. He didn't pass. Like we have all this language around. Anyhow, I could have a whole conversation about that. But yeah, it's very much. I've learned you've got to give yourself time to like catch your breath sometimes, and it's okay too. It's okay to do that.
Well, I'm glad you've got a great story on grief, because we're going to do a series on grief and loss very soon. And so we're going to invite you back to kind of delve into that. And you're, a perfect guest again. But I want to dive into a little bit about, you kind of said that, excuse me, you kind of said that the word leaders can be a little bit, I don't want to use that word, or some people, people are kind of averse to it. But what I heard too, when you started your business, you were definitely a noticer. You noticed what the needs were. They came to you, and then you did something with them. And I have a hunch that is true for you even back when you were a kid, and even in your corporate career. You were always been a noticer. And that,
I would
I kind
say,
of, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, from what I've learned from all the good therapy I've been in, children who come from very abusive situations, you become incredibly observant because it's survival. Like you read people's energies. And I always just thought I just noticed things about people, but it's very much a survival mechanism that you don't even know. Like I used to make my late husband crazy because we would meet somebody and I'd be like, oh, nope. And he's like, you can't judge people that fast. I'm like, watch me. But I tend to just kind of read energies, and I can tell like if there's just something unspoken there. Yeah, just something unspoken.
Absolutely.
And I'm not afraid to call it out, I think, which is more like I will call you out on it. I'll call you out on it because a lot of people like to dance around the truth, and I don't. Yeah.
Right. So you get to the core issues, and you've been doing that probably almost your whole life. One thing I liked, and I'm hunching, I'm going to call you this, not to label you. It's a good call out. I'm thinking you're a community builder with your noticing and building the community. Talk to me about being a community builder, which is a huge piece of leadership.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because I never would have called myself a community builder or leader. And when I was still corporate, they paid me to go back to get a second master's degree. So I went back and got a second master's degree in applied linguistics. It was all online through the University of Massachusetts, Boston. It was fabulous. And after we all finished and everything, I got this big award in the mail that said, you were voted by everybody in the class as the community leader. And I was like, what? What? Like, I don't see myself as that, but I think, I feel like I'm a safe place, but I'm also a truth teller. And I think that's what builds genuine community is, I'm not going to bullshit you. I won't bullshit you.
Right. Well, I'm sure it's like you calling people out on their truth telling. There's an authenticity about you that shines and is very attractive to people. And it's reading energy, and they read your energy. And I had one gal who shied away from the word leader, the word servant leader, but we came up with community builder, and she said, "Oh yeah, I could be a community builder." And that's a powerful gift. Yeah. So what other leadership words
I
would
hope
you?
so.
Yeah.
I think
think it's
community,
fabulous.
I think I probably am more comfortable like with mentor. I don't like the word leader only because it feels like such a responsibility. Like, oh my gosh, people are counting on me to do something. And if I screw it up, that's, so it's more that kind of fear around that. But
Right.
yeah, I think just, I think I'm very much into radical transparency, radical honesty, not unkindness, but yeah, radical transparency. And I think people appreciate that in this day and age
Yeah,
for
they do.
sure.
Oh, for sure. And again, I think, and I'm not just going to say women, but we're good at reading energy. Like you said, you know what I mean? I can tell when somebody is being authentic and transparent, and when I can lean in. So, I mean, as a mentor, you need to lean into some of those scary places with people, whether you're mentoring a group or an individual. So that is really, really
Mhm.
powerful. And a leader
Yeah.
is not,
Yeah.
we're talking about leadership from the
Yeah.
inside out. We're not talking about a title. You know, titles don't
Yes.
mean anything.
Right.
The most profound leaders are usually
Well, and
underneath. Yeah.
a couple words that come to mind in what you're saying is wisdom and discernment. And I don't know. I think any skill has to be practiced, and I think a person has to be open to practicing that, knowing that, because I think of women especially, they're more, I don't mean to sound sexist, but I think by and large, women are more relational than guys. I mean, I think we have a sense of something that they just goes over their head a lot of times. And I think that's a blessing and a curse at the same time. You know, it depends how you're using it, and it depends how it lands on you. Uh, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean,
Mhm.
I'll come out right and say it is women. Like, I talk about this a lot
Mhm.
in my social media. Women have such an emotional intelligence and intuition that, we get conditioned out of us from such a young age that we're supposed to be this way, and we're supposed to be this way, and we're supposed to be this way. I do think the older we get, that starts to fall away. You start questioning. Like I did a video the other day. I'm like, I think menopause is a superpower. Like, you lose the ability to care what other people think, like, genuinely, which then opens the door to questioning, like, well, wait, is that really true? Do I
Yeah.
believe that? Or was that like a societal expectation? I don't
Mhm.
feel like men, I'm generalizing, have that period of questioning. Maybe they do, and they're just hiding it really well. But
I think I think midlife crisis for guys is probably that, Colleen. I think that a guy gets halfway through their career and their life, and they think, "Is this all there is?" And I think they do start questioning themselves. I think that's why you see some of them acting out in not such good
yeah,
ways.
yeah, yeah, very
Yeah.
much so.
Then,
And I think the intuition we have, I think, is female. I don't know. I don't know men with a lot of intuition. I know very smart
Right.
men and, all of the things, but the
Yeah.
intuition where you're just like, I don't know. I don't know about that. Yeah.
Well, I think they're better at letting things go than us. I think women have a tendency to ruminate about things, like relationships and that kind of thing, where guys, well, if they don't want to be my friend, that's fine. And they walk away from it, where we overthink it.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and men are more action oriented. I mean, I'm raising three
Right.
sons. I know that,
Oh,
they have a problem. They'll just go hit each other, and they're still that way. And they're, get head into their 50s. Yes. And the intuition, one thing that I've learned I've been I've been a teacher, I've been a principal, I've been a coach, a leadership coach for the last 25 years. And I'm getting better at telling people that I'm talking to what my intuition is saying. I'm getting better at leading with my gut. I always did it, but I was a little tentative. And I tell people now, if your gut's telling you something, just, say it,
Yeah.
because what's the worst thing that could happen? They could
Yeah.
say that's not true.
Yeah.
But usually it's pretty spot on, even if they don't admit it. Like you
Yeah.
said, that's very, very powerful.
Yeah. I think I'm learning more to trust my gut. I feel like I've always, maybe that's why I'm not risk averse. Like, I just kind of like, this is going to work out. Like, we're going to go try it. This is going to, like, I have a sense it's going to work out, whether that's gut or intuition.
Mhm.
But I'm definitely listening to it more now, just more like life in
Mhm.
general and business decisions. And okay, maybe it doesn't make sense on paper or whatever, but I've been here before. Like, this feels like the right way to go. And I'm also much better now at, I always say, in order to move forward in life, because people ask me all the time, how did you move forward? How, I'm like, you have to give yourself permission to make bad decisions, because that is the only way forward, or you stay stuck. And so I'm like, maybe that's part of it too, is, okay, we're going to throw caution to the wind. We're going to try it. If it doesn't work out, we will pivot or refine. So I'm more willing now to just kind of go with my gut. For sure.
Right. And you were talking about being more comfortable in your skin, menopause. You know, when you get to a certain point, when you're in high school or mid-high school, you know, you worry about what everybody is thinking. And what you're saying is that what I think I hear you saying is that at menopause kind of thing, you strip away a lot of the stuff a lot of the baggage that has held you back. And you kind of say, you either like me for who I am or you don't. And that's okay. I'm moving forward, but I'm not going to sit here and just, you know, get in a quandary about something that I can't control.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also something, we get more discerning. Like, I feel like I have to do more unlearning than I do learning, like kind of dismantling, you know, family systems, you know, condition, all of that, you know, psychological stuff. And you really do start to like, wait a minute, do I believe that? Like, I know our people do this, but do I do this? And you just kind of start peeling away the layers, and you're like, oh, okay, that's where I am. Yeah.
Let go of those stories. Yeah. We have a little chart that we use sometimes, and it's the four, it's kind of a ladder of learning. And the first phase is, oh boy, I'm going to get these right. I'm going to get them right, is unconscious incompetence. So when I'm starting something new, I have no idea. I don't even have language around it. So I walk in clueless. And so I have to go through that first stage, which is horribly uncomfortable. And if I do it in front of people, it's powerful, but what are they going to think of me? Next stage is conscious incompetence. That means I know that I don't know. That's uncomfortable too, at least it is for me. The next stage is conscious competence, which means I'm learning. And the last stage is unconscious competence. That means I'm the mentor. I can teach. But we have to get comfortable with those first few, you know, rungs of the ladder, and not be afraid to do it in front of people. Like you said, you know, you just started, and what happens, but guess what? I'm a learner. I can't be a learner unless I can go through those early stages of not knowing. And sounds like you do that
I
comfortably now.
I mean, I do it very, almost maybe too comfortably now, like, because I'm just like, we're just going to go try this. But I teach that a lot with, you know, students. I'm like, you've got to give yourself permission to make bad decisions. You've got to give yourself permission to be the fool. Like, you're not going to do this well to start with. Like, we were talking before we, you know, hit record. I always send people to like my Facebook group from like back in 2016. I'm like, go watch my videos. It was so cringe. Like, I used a shower curtain as a backdrop thinking it looked snazzy. It did not. And I'm like, I'm still here. But if you don't have those cringe moments, you never get to the next moment. You've got to,
and you don't, you don't learn. And oh, I love that. So if you were to, well, and I kind of want to get into your, you know, you said you were kind of in a cocoon for a couple of years, and then you kind of came out, and so talk to me about that self-development stage, because it's very, very crucial, and we don't seem to go through it until we are in our, you know, usually 40s and 50s is when it starts to come to us. What was your process around that? How'd you get started?
Yeah, well, it still is. Like, I think it's an ongoing process, probably for life now. I mean, for me, it was circumstance, massive loss, that then triggered this kind of place where I remembered all the childhood abuse and flashbacks and got really good therapy. But the biggest thing that came out of it, to be honest, was this notion of radical self-responsibility and having to take responsibility for everything, which really sucks, because you got to be like, I was very much like, but this was done to me, and this was done to me, and this was done to me. And I had a therapist one time say, okay, and if everybody that ever harmed you came back and fell at your knees and asked forgiveness, what does that change? And I'm like, nothing. She's like, that's right. You still have to fix this. You have to do this. And so that was kind of a turning point, as much as it really sucks to be like, ugh, I hate it when I'm wrong, or, I hate admitting when something's not right. But that has been kind of the pivotal moment. Like, anything that's happening in my life now is up to me for the most part. But that's the self-development, is just kind of that, this is it. If it's
turning the mirror on yourself.
Turning the mirror.
Playing the blame game doesn't do any good. And I remember doing the same thing, Colleen, when after I was ended up my first marriage failed, and I had 3 little babies, and I was trying to, and I remember just wanting to just blame everything. And basically what you said is that, but what are you going to do with it now? Where are you going to go from here? You can't, the other person is not going to fix it for you. You've got to make the right decisions for yourself, and you need to move on and make a life for you and your 3 babies. I had a 4-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So I was in the hot seat of trying to figure out, what does the future look like, and how am I going to do this? And you can either be a victor or a victim. And decided I was going to be a victim. That gives way too much power to other people.
It gives all the power to other people. It gives all the power to other people to make your happiness. We're always waiting for some external thing to happen. So I love that you say that. Yeah, it is. A lot of people do get stuck in the why me, why me, why me, and that's fine. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be stuck in that. And like you said, you give all your power to other people when you're waiting for some type of external validation or external reaction, and it's a very different energy when you start showing up like, I'm just going to show up like I'm in charge here. I'm in charge. And it's a very different energy when you show up. And I mean, it's like, okay, you make a bad decision. It's like, oh shit, that was a really bad decision, Colleen. Good job. But it's also like, but it was my decision to make, or it was a really good decision. And so, I think there's something.
Then you can turn that into a positive, if you say, man, I blew this, then you can turn around, and I'm going to do this and move forward on this. I mean, I think that you want to stay away from self-defeating talk, because you want to move forward to being successful at whatever you're choosing to do, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's the only way to open yourself up to figure out what you want to do, or who you want to be, or what's next. That's kind of the only way to do it, is you've got to take that radical self-responsibility. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's powerful. I think I heard this in your video that you did last week. I think it was last week. But I love the fact that you talk about, you don't have to be the so-called expert to write an article, or or give people information. You know what you know, and if you can share it, that's powerful. And I guess that kind of goes along with, you talk about the imposter syndrome, but I don't have enough letters behind my name, to come out and be an expert. But can you talk a little bit about that? Because I just love it.
Yeah, I mean, I help women with their businesses, and they do everything from like continue a career, but on their own, or they completely flip the script and do something like creative or something they've always wanted to do. But I always find there's a couple areas that are challenging in the beginning. Either we don't see our own like skills or expertise, or we assume everybody knows it, which they don't, or we also often don't recognize it because it has become very second nature to us. So we no longer see it as a valuable thing. So, I mean, I've had
Right.
people, I have a woman in my membership now. She's a PhD. She's worked in special ed education for 40 years. And she's like, but can I really write about this? I'm like, well, if you're not an expert, I don't know who the hell is. Like,
Yeah.
but we don't, sometimes we have to really sit down and I have my students like document. I want you to write down everything you know how to do, everything you know how to do, from baking cookies to bookkeeping to I've been in, I have a PhD in special, like, kind of thing. Because sometimes just getting it down in black and white, but even if it's something that, like, say you're not a PhD and it's just something you've enjoyed doing and you've just figured it out, I'm like, you really just need to be a few steps ahead of the people you want to help. In fact, a lot of times being closer to the beginning is easier to mentor people because you remember what it was to be an absolute beginner versus, like what we called in corporate, like the curse of the competent. Like, it's so well now, you can't remember what it was like back in the beginning. So I think sometimes it's very helpful just to be 1 or 2 steps ahead because you can relate to what this person is experiencing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I like to say, and I've been a teacher for a million years, but I like to say that I I teach to learn. You know what I mean? So if I don't know something, I just want to know a little bit, maybe a little bit of the language, and then I want to learn with my students because we'll learn far better together than if I just sit up there and be the bobblehead.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
yes, I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
100%.
yeah.
Mm.
So I want some advice from you today. I have a gal who I've known her for years. I've coached in her organization and sort of coached her off and on. And in April, she was she had a job with the state, or it might have been the federal Head Start program, only in the kind of the district, not the district, but the state office. And she got riffed in April, and I'm meeting her for coffee tomorrow. If it were you, where would you start with her? I'm going to take notes.
I always start with, I call them these personal inventories. Start writing down everything you know how to do, everything you love to do, and shit you never want to do again. Because we all have stuff we never want to do again, but we may be very good at, right? And so I start there. And then what I start doing, because at least in my space, in the online space, any know-how can be translated into a digital product or service. And the more unique, what I call mashups you can come up with, can often be like a really great differentiator. So I always give an example of, like, say you've been a bookkeeper for 30 years and you also like you have a dog walking business. You could create a program, bookkeeping for dog walking businesses, right? It's kind of a mashed up. They're seemingly unrelated, but it's a very specific thing. And to start, figuring out what that combination might be. And then I always say to people, don't think of it as like starting a business. You're going to do a project. You're going to create a simple project first, just to get your feet wet. And people were like, well, I have so many ideas, I can't pick one. I'm like, here's what you do. You put them all in a hat and pick one. Literally. It shouldn't be more complicated than that when you're beginning. Because you really just want to learn the process of what it is to create a product and, formulate, a framework to solve one thing in a product and who to talk to, kind of thing. I said, so the idea really isn't the important part, as it is getting into the mix. And then once you learn, you will start to figure out, who do you want to work with? How, what do you like to talk about? What are you comfortable teaching on? That kind of thing. I keep it very simple. Do the inventories, mash them up, and see what comes up.
I love it because you're not making it complicated. You're making it step by step, and it's something you can do. And I love the pick it out of a hat.
Yeah.
You take away the decision making.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to me when I like to decorate. I've gotten a chance to decorate different places in my life. and I've enjoyed doing it. But where I start is like I will have a pillow that I really like, and I like the colors and stuff, and that will be the beginning for me. And then I will, like you're saying, mash the things that go that color. And because if I look at the big picture, it can be overwhelming. But like what you're saying, Colleen, if you start focused and let it build on itself, it's like webbing. When you're doing a curriculum and teaching, they teach you to do webbing. And how does it start? Well, it starts from this book, you know Very Hungry Caterpillar. Okay, so how am I going to make that work in the things that I'm providing for the children as far as my curriculum, and building off of that. And I think most people or some people are better at it than others. And I think that it's easy to get overwhelmed if you try to do
too much. Yeah.
Well,
your example there is the perfect, like when you were just saying, oh, I always start with like, I have the pillow and then I go look, I'm like, I'm already like, that's a process. That's document that framework and sell it as a little, as a how-to guide on how to, have a focus point and decorate out from that. Like that right there is it. A very simple digital product you could create, and you document the process of it. But it shouldn't be any more complicated than that. One thing I do tell my students a lot is, if you want to have it's very much like learning how to drive a car. You can't learn how to drive a car by reading a book. You got to get in the car, put the key in the ignition, and, do the, the herky jerky, driving. It's kind of the same with digital business. You really need to get in there just to experience the moving parts. So start very, very small and narrow, learn the process, and then you can do, I always say get fancy later.
Add layers as you go. Yeah.
I love it. So have you ever considered yourself to be, because I'm hearing you talk, I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing that actually you're an engineer. You help people to engineer their projects, and you're also a designer. And have you ever considered yourself to be either of those? Oh, tell me more about that. Because your mind just
I wouldn't consider myself an engineer. Anytime I've done personality test, it's like, do not let Colleen be in charge of systems, because she should not be in charge of systems. I'm like the big picture. I think with digital business, I've done it enough that I see the simple steps, and we way overcomplicate it. In terms of design, I do. I like to design. I like to bring a vision to life. I love design. You can see my visual design. I love my colorful stuff. But like in terms of courses and all, I do like to be able to see a vision and then figure out, what that could look like in a very simple way. So if that's design, I would say yes. But yeah.
There's
in charge of systems for sure.
there's creativity wrapped up in all that, Colleen.
Yes, and I would say that I was very kind of closet creative. My whole life it was very much go to school, get a business degree. The family thing. When I really, had I to do it over, I probably would have done creative writing or something like that. But my folks were like, "You'll be a starving artist, and you can't do that." So I did the safe route. Right. But very much, I've always written, and I do love creativity of thinking, and I do.
It shows. You're a great mentor, and you have great experience that you've brought into reality. So you've created wonderful things, and you did before too. But this third act piece has really brought you into your greatness, and I'm just so thrilled to know you.
Oh, you're kind.
And to kind of. Oh, no. It's just lovely to have you here. So, what is one thing that what piece of advice, you get one piece of advice that you would give somebody?
Oh, I would say own your expertise. Own your expertise.
Okay, I like that.
You know what you're good at deep down, and you know what you really love deep down. Own your expertise without apology and without censoring, I would say.
Oh, I love that. bet. That's great.
Mm.
That's great. So, how we kind of close our podcast is we go around and ask you, and we respond to, is what's one thing you're taking away from this conversation today?
Oh my
One
gosh.
takeaway.
Well, I mean, just seeing you ladies doing this podcast is amazing, and talking about leadership, because I would say I don't see a lot of women talking about leadership, and I certainly don't see a lot of my demographic talking about it. So I think that's fabulous. Keep doing it, please, please.
Well, well, we have these wonderful guests, and we're just thrilled. Sandy, what's a takeaway for you?
I love what Colleen just talked about. Own your own expertise without apology or censorship. I think you are correct, Colleen, in the fact that we were raised as gals in the 50s and 60s to be polite and don't rock the boat. And I think it's time for some rocking.
Huge rocking.
Yeah.
Huge rocking. Yeah. Just don't sink it, but rock it. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, my husband would say that I
That's
do
right.
that.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's why they love us. They're not going to tell us that, but it's true.
Right.
I like your radical transparency and radical authenticity that you talked about, that you are who you are, and here I am, so it's just absolutely wonderful. Can't thank you enough for saying yes when I invited you to come on the bridge with us. And we're going to invite you back very soon for our loss and grief episode. So be expecting that, because we're going to kind of have a different format, but it's going to be perfect because we're going to try it. We've not done it before.
I love it.
Thank
I love
you so
it.
much.
Just jumping in. Thank you all for having me. I very much appreciate it.
It was wonderful meeting you, Colleen.
And I love your red glasses.
Yeah, I do too.
So
thank you. You know, as I said, they're Amazon readers, pack of 5. Actually, I'm due to order some new ones because I need to go up in magnification, apparently.
Oh, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll see you later.
Thank you, ladies.